Right. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Most of you are probably in a different time zone than we are here in early morning of LA, California. Um, but I'm Jorrit de Vries. I lead the MBSO here in LA with a phenomenal team, Jiva and Pim, and we're very happy to kick off the second out of third webinars for Dutch businesses to prepare for all the business opportunities in LA. LA is a huge economic center with a similar output as the whole country of the Netherlands, but especially the next coming years. There's so much activity leading up to the LA28 Olympics. That we've seen over the last couple of years organizing trade missions, and especially the one we did for the sports sector last year, that there was a huge benefit of us offering even more content ahead of people moving into the market, either by yourself or as participants of a trade mission. So that's why we set up this three-part webinar series. And this one is very exciting. It's the game plan, the one we ran a couple of weeks ago. Read the field. You can also still catch in replay if you weren't able to join. We really talked about the sports sector and what's going on in general. This one is a very specific in-depth one that came in by special request of a lot of you. How do you do business in LA? How do you approach the different entities that have business to give to foreign businesses? How do you think about the RFP process? How do you work with cities, etc.? And we have a couple of great speakers. Brandon Huge is leading this for us with a whole crew behind him, and he will do the introductions. But we met a couple months ago, or actually a year ago, at a similar event in person, and what he had to tell and how he runs his business, I think, is very beneficial for us and Dutch businesses here on the call. So, Brandon, if you would take the lead here, introduce your team, and I wish everybody a great webinar.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jorrit. So my name is Brandon Hughes. Great to meet everyone. I'm the founder and managing director of FAO Global. And what we're a boutique consultancy. So it's myself. We have a couple senior consultants. We're all executive level presence. I'm a former Army guy, was with the 101st Airborne, former international banker with JP Morgan. And then I've been an international business advisor, studying my career out in China since right around the Beijing Olympics in 2009. And I've done everything from Asia, inbound, outbound, to European market entry and inbound to US market entry. So my specialty is really helping companies prepare, scale, and reduce execution risk when they enter new foreign markets. And I also work with another bank as well as head of transactions. So that allows me to do trade finance and private credit as well as needed. So it works really well. But today is exciting because I brought, I think, an all-star list of speakers with me. We all come from different backgrounds, but I think it's all related and well suited for this webinar on really the procurement opportunities and the LA sports ecosystem. So I'm based in Huntington Beach. It's Orange County. I always called it Los Angeles because Los Angeles is so big, but I cover really Southern California. And with me, I have John Brown, who's a former NFL linebacker and also a private jet broker with Chapman Freeborn. I've also got David Harlow as well, who's the CEO of ITC Diligence Inc., who's going to talk about foreign trade zones and what they've done for sports-related activities in Southern Nevada and also California. And then finishing off is Dr. Jorge or Chevy Chavarin, who's the CEO and founder of his consulting group, and also U.S. Marine Corps. Oh, he's going to kill me. U.S. Marine Corps retired. So he's gonna end it with a really deep dive into what it takes to prepare and win government procurement contracts. So, as a high level, LA by itself is a series of LA County is a series of cities, and it's a giant ecosystem of sports year round. And we'll highlight this. Highlighted are just some of the big events and major teams and brands that you've heard of, but what it creates is an opportunity for thousands of other secondary or tertiary opportunities to be involved or engaged or find opportunities to partner or contract with both private and public businesses. And there's a photo of me when meeting the CEO of LA28 at an LA Chamber of Commerce event, which is a great location for networking. And actually, I think that's how me and York met as well. All right, so just to kind of highlight and kick it off, I want to pass it to Jayon Brown because he is former National Football League. He understands this sector. He's in it. He's working with it, and he's actively developing business in this space for his company. So I asked him to come on to share insights and best practices for what he's doing. So, Jayon, when you're ready, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. My name is Jayon Brown. I am a current jet broker and former NFL linebacker. I played in the NFL for 6 years and played for the Tennessee Titans for 5 years and then the Las Vegas Raiders for a year. And most people ask me what I actually do today, and I explain jet broker. Most people think I'm a pilot. I am not a pilot. I would like to fly. I enjoy flying, but I'm not a pilot. The company I'm with, Chapman Freeborn, is one of the largest aviation solution companies in the world. Been around for over 50 years, and I personally focus on private jets as we do group charters, at which is 19 passengers or more. I do 19 passengers or less. We handle government contracts. We ship animals, cars. We do humanitarian work, emergency flight response, you name it. My company does it. And I like to think of myself as a solution to any aviation needs to help people come up with a better strategy and efficiency for travel. And at the end of the day, I like to view myself more as a resource than a salesperson, as I'm selling chartering flights. And through my slides, strategic marketing and introduction into collegiate and professional sports. So when people ask me how did I break into this business of private aviation, I usually tell them I got this job from getting in the DMs of LinkedIn, which is true. But the same way I built my career in sports through relationships and consistency and trust, I do the same thing now in the private aviation space. As a former NFL player and UCLA graduate, I built relationships throughout my time playing through teammates, agencies, athletic directors, executives, and business leaders throughout my whole career. And now that I made this transition into the private aviation space, I feel like I have something else to contribute. So my friendships evolved from just me being friends with the guy that they're friends with that plays football, to now I'm the jet guy, which is fun. And the relationships that I've developed throughout the years mainly built by trust. So a lot of people do what I do as in being a jet broker, but what separates me from the next guys, Jayon, I've been someone I can count on. I've been there before any need. I was enjoyed hanging around me, conversations, the trust that just built through authentic relationships. Going into business, it's easier going into business with somebody that you trust and have spent time with and have credibility with as well. So sports taught me that trust isn't built overnight. It's built through consistency over time, the same way that I've earned trust through coaches and teammates, the same way I earn trust with clients today. Every relationship starts with a conversation, not a sales pitch. I find as I don't, I find when I try to sound like a salesman, I'm terrible. It's not me naturally. And me being myself and just having conversations and being curious and open-minded of whoever I'm talking to, whether that's a CEO, athletic director, um, being curious of how I can make their world better. And in that, asking questions and just seeing how I can be of a resource and uh, help them just move around and better their lives. On top of that, with the network that I have of not only providing aviation needs of private travel, just through my network as well as where else can I be a resource as we engage in this relationship to help your life move more efficient overall. Um, Also connecting through the doors of decision makers. Most people want to start off at the top, going straight off to whoever the head of the organization is, whether that be a head coach, a GM, but who helps the decision makers make a decision are often the people that helps break those doors open. For myself, when I was a player, you do have an agent, and you tell your agent you need something. They direct you to their assistants, and their assistants are doing the dirty work for you to make the client happy. So in that, many times the assistants, do the dirty work to behind the scenes, and becoming a resource more so than a vendor. As when people need travel needs, talking to them and seeing what they're traveling for, and in that recommending these flights, whether it's a golf trip or just going for a recruiting trip. It's me being a specialist in my craft and being informative to help my client or prospecting, as well as you can count on me to deliver what you need and get there efficiently. So with those trips, knowing that for a hawker that the storage space isn't that good, so you bring in a lot of storage on the flight, I'll recommend more of a Citation 10 that will get you there faster and has more storage and more efficiency. Offering insight from my experience as an athlete as well, from just everyday communication, just to build trust and understanding for each other, helps build long relationships for the future. And nobody, from what I've experienced, nobody cares about what you're saying, like what you say you're going to do. It's the actions behind it. So every single day that I prepare myself to, get up and go about my day, being consistent, being the same person every day, and someone that you're going to get what you're going to get out of me. The same applies for prospecting and client development. I believe that you don't build credibility through one meeting. It's built through hundreds of small interactions, the returns, the follow-ups, the introductions, the promises kept, is how I've seen success in my field of this new business that I'm in. So when I first got started into business, I thought networking means meeting as many people as you can. But through the space I am now, I realize that networking means building relationships that you maintain over time. Some of my greatest opportunities came from rooms where I didn't know anyone. And one of those rooms actually led to me being on this panel right now. And simply by showing up, being curious, asking questions, and seeing common interest as well. But whether I'm entering in an athletic department or a family office or a CEO's office as well, build relationships before you need them, create value before asking, and remember that trust is still the most valuable currency in business. So thank you.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jayon. I think one of the things I really like about what Jayon's doing, and I think you're underselling yourself, because it's not only that you've been an athlete and you've got pre-existing relationships, it's that you're taking a lot of those habits, and I think that's why we get along as well, because it's that military, that consistency, and good habits. But when breaking into close-knit communities, whether it's government procurement opportunities, or whether it's these professional or collegiate sports teams, it's important to be consistent, be the same guy, be the same resource every time they see you, and I think Jayon's done a fantastic job of that, and I mean, and it's clearly showing results, and I think that's one thing that when entering the U.S. market, um, especially in the sports or these kind of close-knit communities and sports ecosystems, is that they're not going to do business with someone they've met one time, unless you have that product that fits the price and everything else. You have to build that in. So I appreciate you going through that and sharing your story, Jayon. I'm moving on to just kind of giving you a sense of LA. Right? So we've got all major events coming up. FIFA's starting. We have the Super Bowl next year, Olympics, Paralympic Games. We have the 2027 NCAA men's basketball. And then every single day, almost, we have a professional sports game, over 500 a year. When you add college, that's over 1,000 events. And that's based on the events. And that's not even based off of the fencing, security, contracting resources, the technology, fan activation opportunities. There's so much that goes into these, and also just simply the capacity building for communities around that support transportation, equipment. So a lot of these are real opportunities, and if you are able to identify and map out early on, you can position your company to be set up for whether it's LA, New York, or any of these other large major sports ecosystems. And so what are a couple ways to get there? So again, think of entering the market, whether it's US or the UK. It's a very much following a pipeline. It's all project management, or all kind of building your own sales pipeline. But it really is looking at the opportunity, setting yourself up to take advantage of the opportunity. For a new market, for the US, it's establishing your brand, it's getting your legal registrations, getting your business registered, your California registration, ensuring that everything is in compliance and documentation set up. And then you build your sales pipeline, you present solutions like Jayon said. If you're authentic and you're there as a resource, and it can help, sometimes finding not just the decision maker, but those who influence the decision maker, and presenting your solutions along the way. That is a way of breaking into a new market. And then obviously, if you're brand new, a new business to the US, starting it, setting up the basic bones of it, and then being able to then win contracts as you go along. So again, this is probably nothing new for anyone, but it's a reminder of how things are done. And when you get to California, there are some specific requirements, especially if you have to set up a U.S. entity. In most cases, you can do business in the U.S. as a Dutch company. There's very few restrictions on the ability to do that, but for certain contracts, for certain companies, and I'd say overwhelmingly, businesses want to do business with others that are local, not just from a trust standpoint, but also a legal standpoint. If your business is registered in Delaware, which the majority of corporations are, that's because there's specific laws that make doing business in Delaware very friendly. If you're looking for a California contract, being local to California and having that California registration is helpful. People may look on it more favorably if they know that you're a locally registered business. You have to have your tax number. You can get an EIN through the IRS. You can establish your U.S. presence with an address or physical location. People use WeWork offices all the time for major companies nowadays. So, there's a lot more flexibility built in, but you still have to have that building that presence. And then this is something that a lot of people don't realize makes a big impact on your registrations and bank account setups, but choosing a NAICS code. And this is essentially a series of codes that tell other businesses what type of business you are and put you into a category. And some businesses have multiple. I usually just find your equivalent, Google it or search it, whichever search provider you're using, and figure out which one. But having that available and knowing that that's going to be asked saves you a lot of time, and it also clears things up from a compliance side when you're starting to get into contracts and bank accounts and payments and so forth. Again, registration and setup is important. A lot of bank accounts, if not all of them, require a U.S. bank address. And then to actually administer and transact on that, they usually need, most banks usually need to have some sort of presence, physical presence, so to show them for anyone authorized on the account, which a lot of times when you're first doing contracts and bidding, it's overlooked. But it can be a big stopper in terms of payments, and even in terms of onboarding to a procurement or supplier portal. And then again, registering in California, if you're doing business with the state or the city, is important. If you're doing business in LA, registering in LA is helpful. And you can have registrations everywhere for your Delaware business, your Wyoming business, your New York business, it doesn't matter. There's a pathway to that, and it's not overly cumbersome. But where you register and where you show your headquarters and revenue impacts from a tax perspective, and helps or sometimes hinders you in terms of winning contracts, just depending on where they think your business is located. And then again, building your team. You can't do it alone. US, you need an accountant that understands GAAP. Your Netherlands accountant may be absolutely fine for this, but understanding the tax implications if you're selling online versus selling in person, retail and so forth, services, all different tax implications. Then having a local attorney. You want someone who understands local laws to be able to walk through things with you, and having ideally some sort of representative, whether it's a consultant, someone like me or someone else, any of our team, or hiring someone full-time internal, or even using a third-party PEO. Which is very common for US companies in Europe. Having somebody there to advocate for your business and be a recipient of incoming and inbound stuff as well is super important, especially on time zones. And then funding. So this is where I love talking about funding, because does it make sense from a profit and loss standpoint? Does your plan actually work? What are the major milestones, and how are you funding it? A lot of companies, foreign companies, it's hard for them to get debt products, so lines of credit, unless they're asset-based. Private funding is available. The public markets, the U.S. has fantastic public markets and access to liquidity, but your company needs to be strong enough to support those type of transitions. So there's a lot of different things that go into there, but I always do the financial model first before we do any sort of major decision making. And then thinking about how international SMEs actually set up their business. If you're retail focused, you can build a Shopify account, have a local 3PL, have a registration, have minimal US headcount presence, and still run an e-commerce platform. You can start getting, you can interview people from abroad. You can start to build out your team without actually getting here. And then the timeline, setting up businesses is super fast, and it's easy to take them down. unlike many countries where it takes almost an act of God to dissolve an entity. In the U.S., it's fairly quick, but again, every state has different considerations, especially once you start with employees, whether they're contractor or full time. So, understanding all of these is important. And then one thing that is overlooked almost all the time and is the cheapest thing to do is set up a US facing website. Set up your US facing social media branding. And this could simply be posting on your LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook, TikTok in English many times. If you don't do that already, having US focused content, posting on US time zones, so that way it has a bigger presence, targeting that. You can also do it for a B2B influence aspect, or you can do it as a B2C style. And then again, if you're a retail company, you can have a Shopify presence for very inexpensive, just to have that presence. So that way, when you're actually starting to do outreach and meeting people, and the first thing I do is go to the company's LinkedIn website, or Instagram, and see if they're actually legitimate, if they're actually involved and active. And a lot of companies do that. A lot of procurement and legal teams will do that. So having that set up ahead of time is the absolute first thing you should be doing and think about, and that's probably the lowest cost out of anything that you'll do. And speaking of, and as you kind of get more integrated into the logistics of things, as you get integrated into the setup and actual nuts and bolts of making your business go, there's a lot of unique aspects to doing, and if you're physically shipping things that you can leverage in the US, that helps from a tax perspective, but also a simple logistics perspective. And I've invited David Harlow, he's the CEO and founder of ITC Diligence Inc., to talk through his experiences. So David, whenever you're ready, please feel free to jump on.
My pleasure. A special thank you to Brandon and everyone that's on the panel. I was definitely looking forward to this. So just a quick introduction about myself. We're licensed customs brokers and international trade consultants. We specialize in the foreign trade zone program and supply chain resiliency for companies that are importing or exporting. And this plays really well into the sports ecosystem for the movement of products, accessories, equipment, goods, and everything else in between, when managing the movement of those goods across the country, but more importantly, across the globe. There's a lot of regulatory requirements, and there's also a lot of obstacles that we have to be able to understand and manage. And so some of the different programs that we represent are programs like foreign trade zones and bonded warehouse programs and free trade agreements, and how those interact with different countries. And more than ever before, this has become extremely important simply because we are in a trade environment that is extremely volatile, and that there's a lot of moving parts that continue to move. Even recently, as of yesterday, there was new announcements of potential tariffs, additional tariffs to replace existing tariffs. So this can get very complicated and very convoluted. And so partnering with a good customs broker such as ITC is ideally how you want to manage that, to ensure you're always in compliance, that you're paying the appropriate fees, but not overpaying or underpaying. And then one of the things we find, especially in the sports ecosystem, yes, having cost-effective measures to manage that supply chain is important, but sometimes it's even more important the timeliness and the efficiency of moving product through all of these different channels becomes even more important. And so understanding how you can most efficiently manage your supply chain for receiving raw materials, components, or finished goods into the United States, and then also how you manage those finished goods being delivered throughout the US, but also to compete globally. And so we're seeing more and more exports out of the United States from products that don't necessarily always domestically are produced in the United States. It's very common to see raw materials or components that are sourced abroad, that are brought into the United States for final stage manufacturing, that also include some raw materials or components that are sourced domestically. And so this is becoming more of a common theme, in the United States and throughout the world, that we're more of a global community than we are a community of just our country. And so this is something that is extremely important that we understand how to manage. Some of the programs that create more efficiencies and manage that timeliness are foreign trade zones. Foreign trade zones are a program that have been around since 1934. It was signed into law by President Roosevelt as part of the New Deal to help get us out of the Great Depression back in the 1930s. It's more important now than it ever was before, simply because the program's meant to create and retain jobs, stimulate economic growth, and promote international trade. And that really ties into the ecosystem of the sports world, and how you can still create economic stimulus in the United States and create more opportunities in the sports world. And one of the locations that we've definitely grown a lot of experience with was in Las Vegas, in the sports industry that has recently, in the past 10 years, has definitely skyrocketed. And this is largely because of foreign trade zones and largely because of supply chain efficiency on those different regions growing those markets. But here in California, sports has always been a big part of California, but it continues to grow. And I think Brandon echoed it in a great way in saying, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's existing sports programs like football and baseball, the soccer programs that we have, the hockey and basketball programs that we have, the collegiate programs that we have, there's a huge demand for this sports ecosystem in California that exists today. But how do we become more efficient? How do we become more competitive? And how do we meet those demands of the sports world? A lot of times when we think of sports, we think of the players on the field or the role players on TV when we're watching those games. But there's so much more that happens behind the scenes, from the accessories, the souvenirs, the things you buy in those stadiums, the equipment that goes along with each athlete and each team. It's an entire process that has enormous volume of demand that's needed to make sure things look as pristine as they do when we watch them in person or watch them on TV. So there's a lot there that creates a lot of opportunity for companies, whether you're manufacturing product, importing product, or exporting product. But back to the foreign trade zone, I talked a little bit about the history of the program, but how does that program help you in this sports ecosystem? Foreign trade zones allow you to bring goods in without having to pay duties or tariffs up front. So it creates a cash flow benefit. By bringing that product into your inventory, you're able to defer paying those duties and tariffs and other fees. You're able to reduce that footprint of costs on the front end and only pay those fees when you're delivering it into the commerce here on the back end. And so in many cases, a lot of companies that enjoy foreign trade zone benefits are receiving payment from their customers before they're actually paying those customs bills or paying those professional fees. And so that creates a positive cash flow benefit when you also couple it with other programs such as periodic monthly statement program that gives you an additional 45 days of deferment. And then when you're competing globally, importing this product and avoiding to pay those duties and tariffs because you have it in inventory in your foreign trade zone, when you compete globally, you're able to eliminate those duties and tariffs completely. This means that U.S. companies and their supply chain can compete with countries all over the world and consumers all over the world without having to pay those tariffs that aren't applicable to where they're delivering the goods for their customers. So if I ship goods throughout Asia, throughout Europe, and parts of South and North America, I can avoid a lot of those fees that are applicable here in the United States, but are not applicable anywhere else. This is what's allowing more and more exports to be created here in California and in the United States. And then lastly, there's manufacturing incentives. There's also weekly entry benefits for high volume. E-commerce industries all can benefit throughout that foreign trade zone program without any operational impact, and to give companies significant financial benefits as they manage the efficiency of their supply chain. And so That's a lot of what we represent, is helping companies find ways to save money, build efficiency, and grow their market share within their industry, specifically the sports industry. And so definitely something to consider. We definitely welcome any questions that companies may have and how we can help them. And I completely agree with you, JN, in that, first of all, I love that you're a Raider for at least 1 year. I'm a big Raider fan, but I'm not about selling myself. I'm more about selling these types of programs that help companies. And so we definitely, for the audience today, will offer free cost benefit analysis, free consulting to help you understand the program and make sure it makes sense for you and your supply chain. So that's definitely something we want to extend to the audience today. Thank you very much, Brandon, and thanks everybody.
All right. No, thank you, David. I think it's I think it's a great example of just understanding the different opportunities that you have and being able to and then being able to leverage them into your strategy. And like David said, some of them are going to be really good fits for what you want to do in the U.S., but it could also benefit you if you're trying to break into the Mexico market or Canada market, or use US as a centralized place for hub of operations in Asia. And so there's a lot of ways and avenues to structure. And I think that's what's great about doing business in the US, is because there's so many supportive, both from a tax perspective and legal structure perspective, ways to operate your business where it's not cumbersome, and it actually helps in the long run. So thank you for that, and thank you for the offer to talk with these businesses. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of outreach after this. Kind of putting it all together. So if you're coming to LA, and you don't have a network, how do you build that? Right? So obviously there's LinkedIn, there's professional websites. You can do cold email outreach, you can do that. But a lot of times, simply building a face-to-face connection, whether it's virtually or in person, pays off. It goes so far for you. And I just we brought in a couple organizations right here to highlight this. If you're in LA, swing by a Chamber of Commerce event. Swing by Beverly Hills, Newport Beach, some of these larger chambers of commerce that both could present opportunities by meeting potential buyers, sellers, distributors, or strategic partners. Also, there's government mandates to do more economic development. You have the Los Angeles Economic and Development Council, LAEDC. They have on that council, and they host regular events. You can reach out to them. They offer their own set of different advisory services, some free, some paid, but you can do a lot by simply setting up initial calls, asking questions. They have a sports council as well. And so thinking about those type of events, the mayor's office has their own unique thing. Every county in LA has their own economic development arm or mandate. So that's foreign direct investment, that's helping existing businesses grow and providing you with a resource. So never do it in a vacuum or a silo. Leverage these programs and resources. You also have, when you break down the market, you have some major universities that offer Division I level sports. You also have youth, high school. You have some of the best high school sports teams in the country out of Los Angeles and Orange County, and San Diego if you want to go farther down. And these programs are competitive, but they have high visibility. So just exploring where your product or service fits in goes beyond the professional sports teams, and this is not an exhaustive list of professional sports. This is just the major ones that I thought off the top of my head. But there are so many other areas. And you have the community that supports them. You have the underlying infrastructure, both from a technology side and a physical side. You have the fan engagement activation aspects of it, and then this physical stadium. And the stadiums, for example, I live in Orange County, so I'm 40 minutes away from the Los Angeles Angels Stadium, um, and they host Monster Jam. My kids love Monster Jam, but they host so many different events that have all these different elements and levels to them. That if you are an events related company, or if you're supporting, that just opens up the layers and layers and layers of opportunities and potential business contacts for your own sales strategy. So it's all critical and it's all helpful if you leverage it correctly. And again, if you're interested in signing up for supplier portals and just seeing what's on there, here's where you go. You can copy and paste. We'll send this out. I believe you can have this as a resource as well. But get onto their gateway. Sign up. It costs nothing to sign up, but it shows you what basic information is going to be required, what they want to know about your company, and then once you're set up in these procurement portals, then you have the opportunity to either bid on projects, or at least when you meet somebody from those organizations, you can say, we're a supplier, here's what we do, and here's why we're a good fit. And when you're thinking of like the nuts and bolts of building that sales pipeline, you want to make sure that you have not only the product and service, but you have the infrastructure to support the sales cycle. So it's not, so it's meeting, it's having your first discussion, it's getting to the point where you can present a solution and proposal. You have contract back and forth sometimes, so you have, you probably have a local lawyer involved, and then you have your engagement. But it's both sending and receiving information and identifying who's responsible for that. Where are you going to go meet them? Whether it's in LA, Netherlands, maybe it's a sports related conference in Las Vegas. Maybe it's Washington, D.C. or New York. You can meet, depending on where you need to meet them, you can physically go there. And then what's the process? Is it outreach on LinkedIn? Is it third and fourth connections? Is it introductions from someone that you know? Or is it in-person events? A lot of business is done at charity events in the U.S. And so think of your gala events, special events, and a lot of these organizations hold them. In fact, the Los Angeles Dodgers on June 2nd held their annual Blue Diamond Gala event. So if you wanted to sell to the Dodgers, go to next year's event. You'll have more of a chance to meet people from that organization than anywhere else, along with potentially other areas. And think of where your headquarters. People want to support local when they can. It's not always a requirement, but it helps for you to be local and for them to want to support you as well. So think about where you structure your business and where your headquarters is at and how you're branding your business. Are we a LA business? Are we a California business? How do you want to do that? And then we'll briefly go over the different, if you're going for government contracts, we have, starting from the top, we have the California government. I miswrote, I said what LA government portal, but this is the California government portal. So if you want California state contracts and a base list of requirements that you should be prepared, you have to be prepared to share your yearly revenue, both at the local entity level and the parent headquarters, so your Netherlands level. Be prepared to show tax records. If you're claiming a small business advantage or some sort of certification or designation, you need to show proof of all of that. And that could be a 2 to 3 to 4 5 years of statements if you have them. So sometimes these feel invasive, but everyone who is bidding on these has to go through this process. And it's part of the whole initiative of being transparent. But once you know ahead of time, then you can evaluate if these are steps that you even want to go through just to be eligible to apply. And then there's avenues to build your public profile for searchability. Dr. Chevy really helped me understand that. That's how we met, by by working on these projects together, and understanding the difference between what a subprime opportunity is, so a subcontractor, or a prime opportunity to the main contractor. And this gets really involved once you start going through any sort of government procurement portals, whether it's at the state level, the national level, or the city level. And speaking of city level, we have rampla.org, and this is the LA government portal. So, and there's a preference if you're based in LA County, there's definitely more of a preference to use you over someone else, and that means your business is registered here. You're getting, you're paying taxes here. You're getting emails and so forth, and so leading up to the LA Olympics or any of these other major events, there are procurement opportunities specific to those that come up. And then finally, you have the LA28 Olympic portal itself. And that's using a major platform called Supplier One, which a lot of companies also use. And again, here's a list of what they're going to ask for. They want your NAICS code. They want to know your global revenue, and proof of registration. And to help you, if you're thinking about maybe LA28 Olympics, where would we be a good fit from a subcontractor or a prime contractor position? They've recently issued a procurement plan, which is searchable on the internet, very easy. But it's a short read, but it gives you an idea of where emphasis and dollars are going to be placed in what subcategories. So if you, and this is multiple pages, and I just took a screenshot of one, but if you're interested in the LA28 procurement opportunities, whether it's being the water taxi service in Long Beach, or providing fences, or providing digital sports support, or player support. All of this stuff might have a place in this, so it's worth a read. And speaking of getting prepared, that's a great transition. We're actually going to bring it to Dr. Jorge or Chevy Chavrin to talk over winning contracts at LA28. So Chevy, I'll pass it to you.
And I appreciate that. Appreciate the introduction. Actually appreciate the opportunity to actually speak today. Yeah, I can get a little bit loud. I actually get I'm pretty enthused when I actually speak in front of large crowds. And so this is right up my quote unquote my venue. So let's talk about some of these opportunities that are be coming forth to us. Now, a little bit of background about myself. I'm a retired United States Marine. So I did serve also, just like Brandon did. I am a diehard Raiders fan. I even got tattoos to prove that stuff. I am a season ticket holder. All right, so let it be known. Okay, so yes, I am deeply involved with sports. I think sports is the glue to my family. Now, as far as my background, I was a professor at one point. Believe it or not, I was a department chair. I've actually served as a business advisor for some big companies out there, and plus I also have my own small business consulting firm now. Now, the focus of today, next slide, please. The focus of today is we're going to be talking about these opportunities. Okay, these opportunities. So the opportunity, there is a lot of opportunity right now that's coming forth here in LA. Okay, the greater Los Angeles area. Now, when you hear greater Los Angeles area, please keep this in mind. It's not just LA. Greater Los Angeles area actually includes Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside County, Ventura County, San Bernardino County. When you hear greater Los Angeles, there's 5 counties that are inclusive of that nomenclature. Now, when we look at the opportunity, there is a lot of it that's going to be out there. It's about a $7.1 billion industry, or should I say, that has been forecasted that we're going to go ahead and spend. Or should I say the city is going to go ahead and spend. Next slide, please. So the commitment. This is a commitment. And I noticed it on the slide already where they talks about the LA28 procurement plan. Do yourselves a favor. Download it, read it, understand it. It gets very, very technical and very, very specific. Now, there are some key caveats to this, okay? 75% of the budget is going to be spent on businesses that are registered within the greater Los Angeles area. LA, Orange, Riverside, Ventura, San Bernardino. 25% of the budget is actually going to be put to the side to small businesses that are registered in LA County, okay? But you also have to be certified as a small business. We're going to talk about the small business certification here shortly. Now, what are some of these sectors that are going to be high in demand? Logistics and supply chain. This is where David actually comes into play, okay? Technologies and ITs, hospitality and events. This is where JM comes into play. Sustainability services, construction, infrastructure, branding and creation. Now, here's the deal though. This is only a snip. Okay, there's a lot more. If you read the LA procurement plan, it gives you a lot more information as far as what sectors are going to be in high demand. Okay, now when we take a look at this, so please understand one thing, which Brandon actually pointed this out already. Ramp LA. Okay, Ramp LA. It is basically one of the repositories, or should I say, quote unquote, it's the only repository where all of the quote unquote contracts are going to be coming through. We have to get registered on there. We're going to talk about the registration here portion shortly, but Ramp LA is live. It's been live. It's the one portal that right now the city of Los Angeles uses on a daily basis to provide procurement opportunities for us, the small business owners. Next slide, please. Now, what does it mean to be contract ready? Okay, what does it mean to be contract ready? Well, we have to have a business that's registered here in the United States. Now, Brandon actually talked about the or opening up a small business to Delaware. Yes, that is the way to actually do it. Now, there's numerous advantages to it, okay, but I'm going to be honest with you, there is no tax advantage to actually registering your business in Delaware. You're still going to be operating out of the state of California, which means you have to have a foreign entity registration as well. I like the strategy that Brandon is utilizing. Why? Because it provides you with anonymity, which means that you don't have to disclose who owns the business here in California other than we're operating out of the state of California. So in that regard, it's a beautiful, beautiful strategy. So when we start talking about these business documentations, yes, you're going to have to register a small business here in the United States. We're going to have to get that EIN number, which basically means we're going to have to go through the IRS. We're going to have to get a business license. Okay, we're going to have to get a business license. We have to showcase that we're going to be operating out of one of the jurisdictions. Again, whether Greater Los Angeles and or if it's going to be LA unique, where we want that small business certification, it has to be out of the Los Angeles region. Capability statement. It was mentioned about networking. It was mentioned about going to events. It was mentioned about going to the chambers of commerce. This is where the capability statement comes into play. What is a capability statement? It's a resume. It's a resume about your small business. What do? You just don't show up empty-handed. No, you show up with this document already prepared, one-page document, and it showcases everything about your small business. It basically says, this is who I am. This is what I can do. This is how to get a hold of me. Now, along with that, obviously, we're going to have some business cards, and we're going to mingle. The best way to tap into this industry or these opportunities is through networking. Network. Now, liability insurance, this goes with all quote unquote small businesses here in the United States. Got to have some kind of liability insurance. Now, the financial capacity, this is where the nuts and the bolts actually come together. This is where basically you're going to be evaluated. Let's say that you do have your business set up already in one of the greater LA region, okay? When you start submitting, once you start responding to the solicitations, they're going to evaluate you utilizing something called the 5 C's of procurement. Okay, the 5 C's of procurement. Capital happens to be one of them, whereby they're going to take a look at your balance sheet and your profit and loss statement, which basically means that you're going to have to get your business documents, get them audited, and convert them over to GAAP, the generally accepted accounting practices. Basically, this is what we utilize here in the United States to showcase that everything is authentic. So we're going to have to convert them over, which basically ties into what Brandon says. We should have a CPA on staff. You should have somebody that can do this for you. So when you start going through these evaluation processes, they will look at your financial statements. Now, there's a relationship between the person that's doing the contracting, the prime, which is going to be the person that actually wants to go ahead and be the prime individual that's going to take the accept the responsibilities and the financial capacity to finish the contract, and what they call the subcontractor. Okay, the subcontractor. The contracting officer is going to evaluate the prime. In order for us to become a prime, we have to have something called a past performance, which basically means that we have to showcase that we can compete in the government sector. We have to start off as a sub, though, in most cases. You're not going to get an opportunity, or should I say it's going to be extremely challenging to get this opportunity as a prime initially. The way to get in is subcontracting. The way to get into subcontracting is through networking. It is a process. We have to go through it. Now, when it comes to the compliance, or should I say the bonding capacity letter, Basically, if you get awarded a contract, they're going to ask for this. And this is where they're going to evaluate your small business under the 5 C's of procurement. Now, compliance, we got to be registered on Ramp LA. This is where they're going to indicate, or they're going to showcase all the opportunities that are available throughout the city of Los Angeles, even the greater Los Angeles area. We have to get registered as small business certification if, in fact, we want to tap into the set-asides, the 25% of the $7.1 billion budget. We have to register on SAM.gov if we're going after federal contract. There's numerous stages to government contract, and we got the federal government, we got the state government, we got the regional governments, believe it or not, we got the county governments, and then we got the city governments. Different layers, but we have to understand the processes. We have to understand the nuances. We have to know how to actually navigate through them. I know how to do all that stuff, guys. Okay. I know that's actually one of my specialties. Government contracting is one of my wheelhouse. I do provide those services, by the way. And then the past performance. Okay. The past performance basically indicates that, yes, in fact, we can complete this. And if you have to reach out to somebody, there you go. I'm going to provide a phone number. I'm going to provide the name of the contracting officer and the amount of money that was awarded to the business. So it is a process, though. We have to get things moving forward, though. Next contract, please. The action plan. We got to establish that U.S. presence. Okay, we got to register that business entity. We got to obtain that EIN number. We have to open up that business bank account. We got to get what they call contract ready, which basically means that we have to take a look at the 3 pillars I just discussed and make sure that we are prepared and ready to go. And then we also have to get registered on all the portals. Brandon actually listed another portal that was on their supplier one. Yes, there's a lot of information that's flowing through there. To my knowledge right now, I'm tracking 5 supplier portals. 5 supplier portals in LA right now that's showcasing a lot of this information, that showcases the opportunities that are listed. All right. I kept it brief and short. Hopefully I wasn't too long-winded, and we got about 2 minutes. So that's exactly what I was running through this, my friend.
No, thank you, Chevy. It was a absolute pleasure. And I mean, really, when I think about winning these contracts, whether it's private or public, it is a process. So the people that are successful and the organizations that are successful have a really good process in place. They've got good habits in place, and they're very systematic about that. And they're realistic as well. Just because you might have the capacity to be a prime, but you're a new business to the U.S., whether you're on the small side or whether you're on the medium or larger side, there is a process and I guess strategy to going for prime versus subcontractor to the subcontractor. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes into it as well. So thank you, Chevy, for that. And that leads us to our last, really our last slide is, so what now? We've thrown a lot at you. What now? Again, going back to that various steps. So, identify the opportunity. Is what we said enough for you to then put resources to it? Or are you going to do a trade mission? Are you going to go to a conference? More webinars? How are you going to, identify the opportunity for you to make a decision? Whether it's let's do a deeper dive or this is not for us. Again, I always go, because my finance background, I always go to the finance side. Can we do enough, or can we sell at a high enough revenue, or can we do this? Does it make sense from a profit and loss standpoint? Do we have the financial capacity to do it? And what are the costs involved? What are the new costs involved to doing business? Again, social media management, you might have to hire a new lawyer or an accountant. You have different federal, state taxes. You have city taxes, just depending on where you're at. And some of the major venues have just a very complex tax structure as well. California, New York, Chicago, major markets, more complex taxes. So understanding those before you get involved. Again, establishing your business, actually building the plan, identifying who's going to do what, when do you have to allocate capital, what kind of capital is it going to be, and then actually taking those steps to do your market entry. So again, laying everything out and starting to make those first meaningful movements. So that ends our presentation. I hope it was helpful. We're very much, this is the plan. These are best practices strategy. Our emails are below. Please feel free to reach out to us as well. We've got all the all of our information. If you have questions, again, add us on LinkedIn as well. Reach out. I've already had a couple of you reach out and asking questions ahead of this. So hopefully we answered some, but I think now is a great time. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or flag it so that way we can start to address it. So thank you so much for everyone joining and the NBSO, your Jifa for making this happen. And thank you to the speakers, David, Jeon, Chevy as well. So thank you. And I think we have some questions. Yeah, Michael, I think I'm happy to share notes. I'll leave it to Jifa and Yorit to pass those out. And we're all putting together a takeaway manual, so that way you have this as an easy printout in a 1 or 2 pager for all this information as well. All right. If no more questions, I appreciate all the support. Reach out to us, send us emails. We, all of us are happy to talk with you and get a better understanding.